Welcome to the Psychology Undergrad.
All right, books open, laptops out, phones on silent. We have exactly 1 hour to get this material into our heads before the seminar, or we're going to get absolutely roasted by the professor.
I'm already on my third espresso.
Yeah.
The caffeine jitters are real, but
Yeah.
the fear of failing this child development module is significantly realer. I feel like I'm vibrating at a frequency that could shatter glass.
Okay, deep breaths. Panic is not a study strategy. We've got this. We have the source text right here. Chapter 11 by Miss Skye and Smith. Mothers, Fathers, Families, and Child Development. It's dense, but, it's manageable.
It sounds so dry when you say the title like that, but I actually started highlighting it last night. Well, mostly panic highlighting, where the whole page just turns yellow. And I realized this isn't just a chapter. It's basically the history of a massive cultural war.
A war. That is a pretty dramatic way to put it.
No, seriously, think about it. It's a war for the soul of the family. It's the old school versus the modern reality.
Okay, I'm listening.
On one side, you have the 1950s, black and white TV, Leave It to Beaver, nuclear family. Dad works, mom cooks, kids are seen and not heard. And on the other side, you have, well, everything else, the reality we actually live in.
Single parents, step families, gay parents.
Exactly. Cohabiting couples, adoption, all of it. And the question on the exam, the one we have to answer is, how does all this messiness actually affect the kid?
Okay, so that is essentially the mission of this study session then. We need to move beyond those cultural assumptions, that 1950s model, and look at the actual psychological evidence.
Right. The goal is to figure out how mothers, fathers, and all these diverse family structures really influence a child's psychological trajectory.
And to do that, we have to start at the beginning.
At the beginning, the Old Testament of psychology.
I'm assuming you mean John Bowlby.
The one and only. Look, if psychology had a founding father for child development, a Moses bringing the tablets down from the mountain is Bowlby, 1951, 1969. This guy laid down the law.
He certainly defined the dogma for decades. But we can't just drop his name. We need to understand the context. I mean, why was he writing this stuff in 1951?
Well, think about the world then. It's post-World War II. Men are coming back from the front. Women who had been working in factories are being pushed back into the kitchen. Society was desperately trying to reset to normal.
And Bowlby comes out with this report for the World Health Organization.
Right, about the mental health of homeless children in post-war Europe.
Exactly. So he was seeing children who had been displaced, orphaned, or evacuated. He was looking at extreme trauma. And from that specific observation, he built this massive thing called attachment theory. So how do you have it summarized in your notes?
Okay, I'm trying to keep it simple for the exam. My one-liner is, Bowlby defined attachment as a psychological connectedness between two human beings.
Correct. But dig a little deeper on that. Is it just about liking someone?
No, it's way more primal than that. It's a survival mechanism. He basically argued that the infant seeks proximity closeness to the caregiver to ensure they don't get, eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Or just starve.
It's evolutionary.
Totally. If you aren't attached, you are abandoned. And if you were an abandoned baby in the wild, you die. It's that simple.
Precisely. It is all about safety. And this constant interaction, the seeking of safety, it builds what Bowlby called the internal working model. This is a key term we absolutely need to nail.
Right, and here's my mnemonic for this, my pop idea. I think of the internal working model like a computer's operating system.
Okay, an OS. I like that.
It gets installed in the very first year of life. And if that installation goes well, if the parents are responsive, loving, and there when you cry, you get like Windows 11 Pro. It's smooth, handles errors well, connects to the internet without lagging, you're set up for success.
And if the installation is buggy?
Blue screen of death. If the caregiver is unresponsive or cold or scary, the whole system just crashes. And Bowlby basically thought, if you get a bad installation in year one, your computer is buggy for the rest of your life.
So you're just running on corrupted software forever?
Forever.
Yeah.
Emotional difficulties, social problems. He saw it as a permanent glitch in your code.
Which is the entire basis of the critical period anxiety.
Ugh, it stresses me out just thinking about it.
It stresses every parent out. It created this massive cultural pressure cooker for parents.
It's this idea that there is a ticking clock. You have until age 1, maybe age 2 if you're lucky, to form this perfect bond. And if you miss that window,
broken.
Game over. Your kid is doomed.
But there is another really specific doctrine in Bowlby's Old Testament we need to flag because it's probably the most controversial part today.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
The monotropy concept. Or, as we might call it for our notes, the Mother Supreme doctrine.
Oh, yeah. Bowlby was, let's just say, a man of his time. He explicitly said the mother is the primary caregiver, not a caregiver. The only one that really counts in that deep foundational way.
And what about fathers?
They were secondary. Background characters, wallet openers. According to Bowlby, the dad is there to support the mom economically and emotionally so that she can support the baby. But the dad himself doesn't have the magic bond. He's like the roadie for the rock star.
It's so interesting to connect this to the moral or even the religious imagery of the time. I mean, think about the Madonna and Child.
Right, you go into any art museum, any Renaissance art wing, what do you see? Mary holding Jesus. It's this sacred sealed circle, a dyad.
And where's Joseph?
He's off in the corner with a donkey or something.
Yeah.
He is not in that immediate sacred bubble. It's a closed loop between mother and child. And Bowlby basically took that religious image and turned it into psychological law.
He codified the idea that this exclusive mother-child bond is the only way a human being develops correctly.
And think about the pressure that puts on mothers. If anything goes wrong with a child, under Bowlby's law, who is to blame?
The mother. Always the mother.
That's where we got all those awful theories like refrigerator mothers, right?
Yeah.
The incorrect idea that cold, unfeeling moms caused autism, it all stems from this Mother Supreme idea.
Which brings us perfectly to the critique. Because if Bowlby is the Old Testament, then we are about to enter the Reformation.
Okay, let's tear it down. Because our textbook authors, Miss Gorey and Smith, they spend a lot of time saying, okay, Bowlby was a genius, but he was also kind of wrong.
I think limited might be the polite academic term. But yes, the research has moved on significantly.
So let's start with that Mother Supreme thing first. We have to cite Mercer from 2011 here.
Right. So Mercer reviewed all the evidence and basically found that these primary attachment bonds are not exclusive to mothers.
Which seems so obvious to us now, but, we need the science to back it up.
The infant is fundamentally looking for connectedness. And that connection can be with a mother, a father, a grandparent, an adoptive parent. It is not about biology, and it is certainly not about gender.
So the magic isn't in the X chromosome. It's not about lactation or something innate to being a woman.
No. It's in the care. It's in the sensitive responsiveness. That's the key phrase. If a father is the one who is consistently changing diapers, soothing the crying, and making eye contact, the baby's brain doesn't go, wait a minute, this is a man, I can't attach to him. The brain just says, this is my safety, this is my person.
Okay, so fact check number 1. Dads are relevant. We'll get way more into that later. Now, fact check number 2, the doomsday clock. That whole critical period thing.
This is where we need to talk about Michael Rudder from 2002 and the concept of neuroplasticity.
This is honestly the most hopeful part of the whole chapter, because Bowlby made it sound like if you had a bad start, you were just doomed. But Rudder says, not necessarily.
Rudder argues that the brain is plastic. It can change. It can be rewired. New attachments can be formed later in life if the environment changes from a bad one to a good one.
But to prove this, they needed a sample group. A group of children who had suffered the absolute worst possible start in life you could imagine.
The Romanian orphans.
Yes. We need to spend a moment on this because it's the cornerstone of modern resilience theory. It's a heartbreaking story, but the science is so important.
We touched on this in the intro course, but let's do a quick refresh. So in the late 80s and early 90s, under the dictator Ceausescu, Romania banned all abortion and contraception.
He wanted to boost the population, create more workers for the state.
But the result was just thousands upon thousands of unwanted children who were dumped into these awful state-run institutions.
And the conditions were horrific. We're talking about children left in their cribs for 23 hours a day. No toys, no talking, barely any food, and crucially, no touch, no love.
No attachment figures at all. They had these shifting staff members who were explicitly told not to bond with the kids. So if Bowlby was right, these kids should be broken beyond any hope of repair. Their operating system wasn't just buggy, it was never even installed.
Right. So when the regime fell in 1989, the world saw what was happening, and many of these children were adopted by families in the UK and Canada.
And this is where Rudder's study comes in. He and his team followed them in this massive longitudinal study. They checked them on arrival, then again at age 4, 6, 11, and 15.
And what did they find? Because the initial reports were pretty scary.
Initially, yes. The children who were adopted after the age of 6 months showed really significant deficits compared to those adopted earlier. They had lower IQs, their growth was stunted, and they had a lot of specific behavioral issues.
But the longitudinal part is the key. Did they stay that way forever?
And that's the miracle. They saw incredible catch-up, resilience in action. When these kids were placed into loving, stable, stimulating families, their IQ scores rose dramatically. Their physical growth exploded. Literally, a condition called psychosocial dwarfism was reversed. The brain began to rewire itself in response to love.
But it wasn't a total wipe, right? The scars didn't completely disappear for everyone. We have to mention the specific symptom that persisted for some of them.
Yes, indiscriminate friendliness.
This is a key term for the exam, indiscriminate friendliness. How would you explain it to someone who just thinks it sounds like a nice kid?
It does sound positive, doesn't it? Oh, look, he's so friendly, he loves everyone. But psychologically, it's a massive red flag.
It means the child will run up and hug a complete stranger, sit on their lap, walk away with them from a park, just as easily as they would with their actual parent.
Exactly. It shows a lack of a specific, secure anchor. They don't have a go-to person. They are seeking affection and safety from anyone and everyone because they didn't have that one person early on.
It's a survival strategy gone wrong. I will be charming and friendly to every adult I see so that maybe one of them will take care of me.
But, and here's the really hopeful part, Rudder found that even this symptom reduced over time. By age 11, it was much less common. By age 15, even the quasi-autistic features they saw in some of the kids, the rocking, the lack of eye contact, had faded significantly for many of them.
So the big takeaway for our notes is this. Early trauma is serious. We aren't downplaying that at all, but it is not a life sentence. The environment can heal the brain. The critical period isn't a steel trap door that slams shut at age 2. It's more like a sensitive window that stays cracked open for a long time.
Which is the perfect segue to part 3 of our notes, the New Bible. If Bowlby is the Old Testament.
Who is writing the New Testament?
Harry Bronfenbrenner.
God, that name is such a mouthful. I always misspell it on the exams. But his theory, the bioecological model, this is the one we really need to master.
It's a complete paradigm shift. Bowlby was looking through a microscope, right? Just mom and baby. Bronfenbrenner basically says, put down the microscope and look at the whole room. Then look at the house. Then look at the neighborhood. Look at the city. Look at the timeline.
The visual analogy I use for this, and I swear this is the only way I can remember all the layers, is Russian nesting dolls.
Okay, go on. I like that one.
So you've got the tiny little doll in the very middle, right? That's the child. Let's call him Bobby. But Bobby is inside a slightly bigger doll. That's his family, his microsystem, which is inside a bigger doll, his school. Inside a bigger doll, the government. You can't understand the tiny doll without understanding all the dolls that surround and contain it.
That works perfectly. Or you could think of it like the solar system. The child is the sun in the center, and there are these different orbital rings of influence around them. But let's run through the 5 systems real quick. We need concrete definitions for the exam.
Let's do it. System 1, the microsystem.
This is the immediate environment, the places where the child has direct face-to-face contact.
So for Bobby, this is his living room, his classroom at school, the local playground. It's the people he actually talks to every day, his parents, his teacher, his friends.
Correct. Okay, system 2, the mesosystem.
Meso, meaning middle or connection. This is the one people always get wrong on the test. It's not a place. It's the link between the microsystems, the connective tissue.
Give me a messy, real-world example of a broken mesosystem.
Okay, so imagine Bobby's dad hates Bobby's teacher. The dad is always complaining at dinner saying, Mrs. Johnson is an idiot, she doesn't know what she's doing. And Mrs. Johnson, in turn, thinks the dad is neglectful and never helps with homework. That conflict, that is a broken mesosystem.
And what does that do to Bobby?
It tears him apart. He's being pulled between 2 major authorities in his microsystem. The link between home and school is toxic. He doesn't know who to believe.
Perfect. If the mesosystem is strong, parents and teachers are a team, they talk, they work together, the child feels consistent support. If it's weak or hostile, the child is living in these separate warring boxes.
Okay. System 3, the exosystem.
Like exoskeleton on the outside. These are places the child doesn't physically go, but still feels the effects of.
How can a child feel a place they don't even go to?
Through the parent. The classic example is the parent's workplace. Bobby never goes to his mom's office, but let's say mom has a terrible, stressful boss who screams at her all day.
Okay.
She comes home exhausted, her cortisol is spiking, and she snaps at Bobby for spilling his milk. The boss is in the exosystem, but he just ruined Bobby's entire evening.
Wow, yeah, that makes total sense. Or like the local school board deciding to cut the budget for after-school art programs. Bobby isn't at that meeting, but suddenly his favorite class is gone. That's the exosystem.
Exactly. System 4, the macrosystem.
The big picture. This is the cultural values, the laws, the economy, the atmosphere, the planet the child lives on.
Give me an example of how the macro system presses down on the microsystem.
Inflation, the price of eggs going up. If the economy tanks, that's a macro system event, then dad gets stressed about money. Maybe he has to work a second job so he has less time to play catch with Bobby, or laws about maternity leave. If the government says you have to go back to work after 2 weeks, that law directly dictates the infant's experience of care in their microsystem.
And finally, system 5, the chronosystem.
Time. This one has 2 meanings, right?
Yes, exactly. First, it's historical time. You know, growing up in 2024 with TikTok and the internet is a completely different experience from growing up in 1950 with a hoop and a stick.
And the second meaning.
It's also the timing of major events within a single life.
Like a divorce. A divorce affects a 2-year-old completely differently than it affects a 15-year-old. The 2-year-old just loses their sense of security. The 15-year-old might be angry or sad or maybe even relieved. The timing of the event changes its impact.
Excellent summary. Now, for the rest of this session, we are going to zoom right in on that first layer, the microsystem, specifically the family unit, because this is where that old school versus modern reality fight gets really bloody.
The battle of the family structures. Bring it on.
Let's look at the traditional family first. The biological mother and father, married, living together, the Leave It to Beaver setup.
Okay, we have to look at the stats. And the stats, according to a motto from 2005, are, well, they're kind of annoying if you're trying to prove the modernists are right about everything.
Annoying how?
Well, the research generally shows that children in those 2-parent biological households do, on average, have better outcomes. Better grades, better emotional regulation, less behavioral trouble, lower incarceration rates down the line.
That is what the data says. And if you stop reading right there, you become a conservative pundit on TV saying marriage is the only way. The evidence is clear.
Right.
But, and this is a massive but, as psychology students, we have to deconstruct why. Correlation is not causation. That should be tattooed on our foreheads.
Exactly. Is it because married people are somehow morally superior?
No.
Is it because there is some kind of magic dust in a marriage license? Like, does the piece of paper emit special radiation that makes kids smart?
Highly unlikely.
It comes down to 2 really practical, boring things: resources and supervision.
Magnuson and Berger from 2007 basically call it the cash factor. I mean, it's not romantic, but 2 parents usually mean 2 incomes, or at least 1 income and 1 full-time caregiver, which saves a fortune on childcare costs.
Money matters.
Yeah.
We can't pretend it doesn't. Higher socioeconomic status means better housing, safer neighborhoods with fewer gangs, better nutrition, access to tutors, music lessons. So is the kid doing better because the parents are married or because they aren't constantly stressed about paying rent?
It's largely the latter. And then there is what you call the tag team factor.
Supervision. It's just simple math. If there are 2 adults and 1 kid, you're playing man-to-man defense. Actually, you're double teaming them. If there's 1 adult and 2 kids, you're already outnumbered.
2 role models. 2 people to check homework. 2 people to notice if the kid is acting weird or suddenly smells like cigarette smoke. It's just a bigger support network. It prevents burnout in the parent.
But here's a pop idea we need to bust. The piece of paper theory.
You mean the marriage license itself?
Right. Does the actual legal status matter? There's a study by Liu from 2006 on this. They compared kids of married parents to kids of cohabiting unmarried parents.
And the verdict.
No significant difference. If 2 parents are living together, committed to each other, and the relationship is stable, the kid does just as well as if they're legally married.
This is a crucial insight for the exam. It is not the legal status that drives development. It is the stability and the presence of caring adults.
So living in sin, as my grandma would call it, is perfectly fine for child development as long as you aren't fighting all the time.
Which brings us perfectly to the non-traditional gauntlet. We need to run through the real risks and the real realities of all these other family structures. Let's start with single parenthood. This is a huge demographic now.
Okay, this is a big one. The risks are kind of obvious because they're the flip side of what we just talked about. Poverty is the biggest enemy here.
Yeah.
And just time. There's a study by Ginsburg from 2007 that points out single parents just have less time to play.
And play is crucial for development. We know that. If mom is working 2 jobs just to make rent, she's not on the floor building Lego castles. She's exhausted.
But there is a twist, and I love this twist. Walker and Hennig found that single-parent homes can sometimes have greater intimacy between the parent and child.
That actually makes a lot of sense. If it's just you and me against the world, that bond can become incredibly tight and communicative.
Right. In a nuclear family, sometimes the parents are so focused on their own relationship. In a single-parent home, the child often becomes the primary partner in the journey. They talk more, they share more, they're a team.
But the biggest takeaway for single parenthood, and if I write one thing in big, bold letters on my exam paper, this is it, is that the villain is not the single parent. The villain is conflict.
Yes, this is the conflict hypothesis. This is so important.
People just assume that divorce ruins kids,
Hmm.
but the stats show that a stable, quiet, low-conflict single-parent home is infinitely better for a child than a nuclear two-parent home that is filled with constant war.
Hostility is toxic. It just seeps into the child's microsystem like carbon monoxide. If the parents are always fighting, yelling, slamming doors, giving each other the silent treatment, the child's cortisol levels go through the roof. Their sense of security is just shattered. They start thinking, is this my fault?
So divorce, while obviously painful, can actually be a rescue mission for a child's mental health if it stops the war.
Conflict is more damaging than the divorce itself. Boom, mic drop.
Okay, pick the mic back up. We have to talk about fathers.
The invisible men.
Yeah.
It's actually wild when you look at the history of psychology, how long we just ignored 50% of the parents. Bowlby didn't care about them, and for decades after, researchers just treated dads as not moms.
But the new stuff from people like Lewis and Lamb, for instance, shows there are distinct father effects. We need to be specific here for the exam. What do dads do differently, on average?
Well, generally speaking, and obviously there are always exceptions, fathers tend to play differently. They do more of the rough and tumble play.
The wrestling, the throwing the kid in the air.
Exactly. The racing, the tickle monster stuff, it's more physical.
And psychologically, what does that kind of play teach a child?
It teaches emotional regulation. Think about it. When you're wrestling with dad, you get excited, maybe a little aggressive, but if you bite him or hit too hard, the game stops immediately. You learn the limit. You learn, I can be strong and excited without being hurtful.
Exactly. It challenges the child to take risks, but within a safety net. And there is a specific buffering effect mentioned in the text for boys. Boys with absent fathers are statistically at a higher risk for aggression and conduct problems.
It's that role model thing. If a young boy has high testosterone and high energy, he needs a positive male figure to show him how to channel that into something constructive, not destructive. A present, positive father figure buffers that aggression. He teaches, be strong, but also be kind.
But there is a really interesting nuance for girls, too. And this highlights where mothers are specifically missed in some single-father households.
You're talking about the Monarch conversation.
Right. Coleman studied this in 2003. They looked at adolescent girls living with lone fathers. And they often struggle significantly when they hit puberty.
I mean, it just makes sense. It's awkward. There are biological realities, getting your period, buying a bra, body changes, that a teenage girl just really wants to talk to a mom or another woman about.
It highlights that while dads can do everything a mom can, there are some gendered experiences where having a same-sex parent is a massive resource.
It's not that the dad is failing. It's just a potential gap in the mesosystem, maybe. A lack of a certain kind of female guide at a critical time.
All right, moving on to stepfamilies.
Okay, this one is complex. Literally.
Yeah, you have simple stepfamilies where one parent brings a kid and the new partner doesn't, and then you have complex stepfamilies where everyone brings kids from a previous relationship, the whole Brady Bunch scenario.
And statistically, complex stepfamilies are much, much harder to navigate successfully.
It's a roll of the dice, but we have to talk about the evil step-parent trope. I mean, Disney has done so much damage here.
Cinderella, Snow White.
Mm.
The stepmother is always a witch who is actively trying to kill you.
The research shows that the role of the step-parent is incredibly tricky to get right. What is the #1 mistake a new step-parent makes?
Oh, easy. Trying to be the parent too soon. Coming in hot and trying to be the new boss.
Exactly. If a new stepdad walks in on day 1 and starts trying to discipline the kids, go to your room, you're grounded, do your homework, what happens?
Total rejection. You're not my real dad. It triggers this massive loyalty conflict. The kid feels like if they listen to the new guy, they are betraying their biological dad.
Right. So the research suggests a very specific strategy for new step-parents. Don't be the disciplinarian, at least not at first. Be the supporter.
Be a friend. Be a mentor. Be an ally to the biological parent. Let the bio-parent handle the heavy discipline, at least for the first year or two, until you've built that trust bank.
If the step-parent acts as a support, a second pair of hands, a driver to soccer practice, a friendly listening ear, it can be a very positive addition to the child's life. But trying to establish dominance just increases problems.
So the advice for a new step-parent is basically chill out, be a cool aunt or uncle, not a prison warden.
Now, let's tackle the topic that creates the most moral panic in the media: gay and lesbian parenthood.
Oh, the headlines. The ends of society. Who will teach the boy to shave? Who will braid the girl's hair?
There is just so much noise and fear around this topic.
And we need to just ignore the noise and look at the science. Tasker from 2005 is the key citation here.
And the verdict.
Indistinguishable.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Children raised by same-sex parents are, on every major psychological metric, indistinguishable from their peers raised by heterosexual parents. Psychological adjustment, peer relationships, academic success, you name it.
So having two moms doesn't make you confused about your gender.
And it doesn't make you gay. That's the other big fear you always hear, right? That they will somehow recruit the children into being gay.
The research shows absolutely no significant difference in the sexual orientation of the children when they grow up compared to the general population. Most kids of gay parents grow up to be straight, just like most kids of straight parents.
But what about the gender role argument? This is the one you hear the most. A boy needs a father to learn how to be a man. If he has two moms, where does he download the man software?
This is where Bronfenbrenner saves us again. The mesosystem.
Right. The family is not a sealed bunker.
Exactly. A child doesn't just learn about gender from the two people who live in their house. They have uncles, grandfathers, male teachers, coaches, their friends' dads.
The village provides the gender models. You don't need to have them all sleeping in the master bedroom. If a boy has two amazing, loving moms, but he also has a great soccer coach and a loving grandpa, he figures out what masculinity is just fine.
Precisely. And the key takeaway here, once again, is relationship quality. Tasker found that two moms who love each other and create a stable, supportive home are far better for a child than a mom and dad who hate each other's guts.
It always comes back to conflict versus stability. Love is the nutrient, not the gender of the person providing it.
Now, we are in the home stretch, part 6, Applied Policy, the best interests of the child.
This is the exam question section. How should all this science actually change the law?
Let's look at adoption first.
We kind of touched on this with the Romanian orphans, but the policy shift is huge. It used to be all about blood is thicker than water. We would leave kids in really bad situations because we thought biology was paramount.
And now the science says environment heals.
Adoptive parents can literally reverse the effects of severe neglect. Smike and his colleagues showed this. It confirms that the legal system should prioritize getting kids out of bad biological homes and into good adoptive homes as fast as possible.
Speed is key. Every month a child spends in a neglectful environment is more damage to that OS installation. You can't wait around for years hoping the biological parents will magically fix everything if the child is actively suffering.
But here's the one that really blew my mind. The divorce and shared care debate. This is where the science gets really specific and honestly kind of controversial for a lot of people.
This was the aha moment of the whole chapter for me.
So the modern court system, it loves 50-50 shared care, right? Seems fair. Mom gets a week, dad gets a week. It respects the rights of the parents.
But McIntosh and her colleagues in 2010 looked at this specifically for infants, toddlers, children under the age of 4.
And
Massive warning lights started flashing. For children under 4, shared overnight care like bouncing back and forth 5 or more nights a fortnight had deleterious impacts.
deleterious, that's a polite academic word for really bad.
Emotional regulation problems, increased stress, more clinginess, poorer security.
But why? I mean, surely seeing both of your parents is a good thing.
It is, but you have to think about the infant brain. Does a 2-year-old understand the concept of Tuesday?
No.
Does a 2-year-old understand the sentence, I will see mommy again in 3 days?
No. They just understand mommy is gone right now.
Exactly. Infants and toddlers need a primary anchor. They need to know where home base is. If you are 2 years old and you are sleeping in a different bed every few nights and the smell of the room changes and the routine changes, it disrupts that OS installation we talked about. It creates a chaotic and unpredictable microsystem.
It breaks their fundamental sense of security. The baby basically feels like a package being shifted back and forth between two different worlds.
But, and this is a really important caveat, by age 4 or 5, that negative effect completely disappears. Older kids can handle 50-50 just fine. They understand time, they understand dad's house and mom's house. They have object permanence and memory to sustain that connection even when a parent is absent.
That is so heavy. because it implies that what we see as fairness to parents, the 50-50 split, is actually unfairness to the infant.
Precisely. The policy implication is that courts need to be way more sophisticated. They need to look at developmental stages. What works for a 10-year-old fails for a 2-year-old. The law needs to be smarter than just cut the baby in half, to be fair.
Wow. Okay, my hand is cramping from taking notes, but I think we have the cheat sheet for the exam.
Let's summarize the entire course in 4 bullet points. If you can write these 4 things on the final, you will pass.
Okay, hit me. Bullet 1. Ecology matters more than biology. It's not about whose DNA you have. It's about the system, the Bronfenbrenner layers that surrounds you.
Bullet 2. Conflict is the enemy, not divorce. A peaceful single parent beats a warring couple every single time when it comes to child outcomes.
Bullet 3. Quality of care beats structure of family. Gay, straight, single, step. It doesn't matter nearly as much as, are you kind? Are you stable? Are you there for the kid?
And bullet 4. Developmental stage dictates the rules. Don't treat a toddler like a teenager. The infant needs consistency above all else. The teenager needs guidance, but can handle complexity.
I weirdly prepared. I think I might actually pass this thing.
But we covered a lot of ground. From Bowlby's Mother Supreme doctrine, to the resilience of Romanian orphans, to Bronfenbrenner's entire bioecological solar system.
But before we close the books, I have a final provocative thought. Something that wasn't explicitly in the text, but has been bugging me since we started talking about Bronfenbrenner.
Go on.
We just spent this whole hour talking about how critically important the village is. Bronfenbrenner's mesosystem, the uncles, the teachers, the neighbor, that whole solar system of support.
Yes.
But doesn't it feel like modern society is actively destroying the village?
How do you mean?
Think about it. We all move away from our extended families for jobs. I live 500 miles from my parents and my cousins. We don't know our neighbors. I literally will hide if I see my neighbor in the hallway so I don't have to make small talk. We are making the microsystem smaller and smaller and more isolated.
That is a profound irony. We finally have the science that proves it takes a village, right at the exact moment in history where the village has been bulldozed to make way for individual apartments with Ring doorbells. We're raising kids in these isolated chambers and then wondering why everyone is so stressed and anxious.
And one other thing. If fathers and mothers are equally important, as all the new research clearly says they are, then why are our family support services still so overwhelmingly mother-centric?
That's so true. If you go to a parenting class, it's 90% moms. If you look at custody battles, the courts still have a bias towards the mother. If a dad goes to a playground on a Tuesday morning with his kid, people look at him like he's either unemployed or suspicious.
The science has moved on to 2024, but the culture, the macro system, is still lagging behind in 1950.
Maybe that's what you should write in the essay conclusion. The science is modern, but the society is ancient.
That is an A-plus argument right there. I'm definitely using that.
You should.
All right, my brain is completely full. I need another coffee, or maybe a nap. Or maybe I should just call my dad.
Calling your dad sounds like a good microsystem intervention.
See you in the lecture hall.
Good luck.